In this presentation, we'll go over how to research a topic for a literature-based writing assignment. By the end of this presentation, you should be able to define academic research, choose and narrow down a topic, read the text and take reading notes, conduct preliminary research, write a working thesis, conduct specific research, and synthesize sources into your writing. First, let's talk a little bit about academic research and why it's important. Academic research is research conducted by scholars that closely studies a topic in order to create new knowledge and add to the existing conversation on that topic. This type of research is organized around a debatable thesis or argument, requires careful study and citation of evidence, and builds on knowledge from previously published scholarly works on the topic. In this way, academic research can be seen as a conversation between scholars. As a student, part of your academic responsibility is to add to that critical conversation. However, before you can contribute your own ideas about your topic, you'll need to become familiar with what's already been said by other scholars, most often in articles published in peer-reviewed academic journals or in books published by academic or university presses. When you write your own essays, you'll need to demonstrate to your reader that you've done your research, that your research is up to date with the current critical conversation, and that you intend to offer your own interpretation of the topic that is new or different in some way. There are a few steps you should take before you begin your research. Start by reading the instructions of your writing assignment carefully. The instructions will help you establish what type of essay you should write, what your topic will be, what style or format you should use, what kinds of sources you'll need, and how long your essay should be. Additionally, they should get you thinking about your rhetorical situation, your purpose for writing, the audience you'll be writing for, and the tone that you should use. Next, make a schedule for writing that includes the 5 steps of the writing process, plus additional time for researching. Breaking up the work into manageable steps reduces anxiety, prevents procrastination, and generally results in better writing and a higher grade. When creating your schedule, it's always a good idea to plan for more researching and writing sessions than you think you'll need. Schedule the following steps. Complete the invention or pre-writing step of the writing process by choosing your topic, taking reading notes, and conducting preliminary research. Then, develop a working thesis and use it to conduct more specific research. After researching, complete the remaining steps of the writing process. Structure your essay by making an outline. Draft your essay by synthesizing ideas from your research with your own ideas. And finish by revising and editing your essay. After making your schedule, it's time to choose your topic. For a literature essay, the topic will generally be a specific work of fiction, poetry, or drama. Sometimes you'll be assigned a particular text to write about, while other times you'll be free to choose your own. If given a choice, be sure to choose a text that interests you in some way, such as one that is enjoyable to read, relatable, or focused on issues that you care about. Alternatively, you can choose a text that is controversial. Perhaps you dislike or disagree with some aspect of it. Keep in mind that the length of the text doesn't necessarily correspond with its difficulty level. Shorter works like poems might only take a few minutes to read, but they may contain dense material that is more difficult to analyze, whereas longer works of fiction or drama may take more time to read, but they are often easier to analyze. If the text is assigned to you, try to choose a particular aspect of the text that appeals to you. For example, if you're asked to write an essay about a poem by William Shakespeare but have no interest in poetry or Shakespeare, consider writing about how the message of the poem can be applied to the world today. As discussed in the Analyzing Literature presentation, you should always start a literature analysis by preparing for reading. Preview the text title, author, and publishing date, and write down your initial expectations of the text based on this information. Next, read the text once in its entirety to get a feel for its main ideas, then go back and read it again carefully and slowly. As you read, take reading notes that identify any literary elements that stand out. Look up words or allusions that you're unfamiliar with. Write down any questions you have, and summarize your initial reactions to the text. Reading the work closely like this should give you some insight on the work's overall meaning or purpose, and may help you develop some ideas as to what you'd like to focus on when researching and writing your essay. Literary elements are often used across genres in different ways. To identify literary elements in the text that you're analyzing, it may be helpful to make a chart that answers the following questions: who, what, when and where, and why. First, who is the text about, and who are its characters and audience? Generally, fiction tells a story through a reliable or unreliable narrator in first, second, or third-person point of view to set the tone. Includes characters that are round or flat, dynamic or static, protagonists or antagonists, etc. Poetry uses a speaker to express ideas that are highly dependent on diction, word placement, and figurative language to set the tone, which may be directed to specific auditors and may or may not have characters. Drama is highly dependent on the dialogue and actions of characters, and only occasionally uses a narrator that addresses the audience directly. Then, make note of what happens in the text or what ideas the text focuses on. Works of fiction usually contain detailed plots and subplots that separate events into distinct parts, like exposition, rising action, climax, and resolution. The action is driven by conflict, and events are composed in a specific sequence. Fiction may be further categorized into subgenres based on length, such as novels, novellas, or short stories, or based on topic, such as romance, mystery, or satire. Poetry may describe a situation, feeling, or idea that may or may not include events or actions that make up a plot. Poetry often uses distinguishable internal or external structures, sounds such as rhyme, alliteration, and rhythm, and sometimes uses subgenres like narrative, lyric, sonnet, or elegy. The action and plot of works of drama are, like fiction, made up of distinguishable plot points and driven by conflicts of characters, but may also include stage directions and may separate events into scenes and acts and include an intermission. Next, when and where does the text take place, and what is the text setting? Fictional works may use settings that are real or imaginary and may take place in the past, present, or future. Events may occur over the course of a few hours, days, or even several years. While some poems depend entirely on specific spatial and temporal settings, others focus on feelings or ideas and may not have identifiable settings. Works of drama use staging, sets, costumes, and props to determine a variety of settings. Finally, try to determine why the text was written. Why does it matter, and what does it mean? All genres tend to use themes, central concepts, or underlying messages of a work. Themes may be major or minor, and usually are not explicitly stated. Instead, you have to find them by searching the text for literary elements that stand out or are used repeatedly, or by discovering morals, lessons, or arguments that are implied by the work. For more detailed explanations and examples of each of the literary elements briefly mentioned in this presentation, see my presentation on analyzing literature. Once you've read the work carefully and taken reading notes, the next step is to do some broad preliminary research on your topic, which may help you identify details about the text that you may have missed in your initial reading, become familiar with the critical conversation on that text, and narrow your research focus. While conducting preliminary research, keep an eye out for specific aspects of your topic that you feel are the most interesting and intriguing to you personally. A great way to start your preliminary research is to do a search for your text on Wikipedia. Though Wikipedia is not considered a reliable source to use as support in your writing because it is open sourced, written collaboratively, and not peer-reviewed, it can be a great way to get an overview of your topic. For example, if you wanted to write about Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, you could do a search for the title on wikipedia.org. The Wikipedia article for Moby Dick begins with an overview that includes a brief summary of the story's plot, contextual details, and information about the author. Additionally, it may point out a particular literary movement that the work is associated with, and briefly list some of the work's major themes. After the overview, you'll see a table of contents that lists various sections in the article, such as plot, structure, and point of view. Because Wikipedia articles are developed over time by many different writers, the table of contents sections will vary for each article. Since the primary goal of a literary analysis should be to develop an interpretation that focuses on what the text means, it might be a good idea to first learn about its themes by clicking on the link in the table of contents, which will take you to that section of the article. Here, you can read about the various themes of the novel that have been analyzed by critics since its publication, such as man's search for truth, racial conflict, and differences in perception. Wikipedia articles often reference academic sources. If you want to learn more about a source that is referenced, you can click on the superscript numeral within the text, which will take you to the footnote section at the end of the article that provides bibliographic details for the source. Most of the time, the sources listed in the footnotes are scholarly and peer-reviewed, so they could potentially be used as support in your writing. If you find particularly helpful sources while conducting your preliminary research, write them down so you can come back to them when conducting more specific research later on. When available, you can click on the links provided in the footnotes to read the sources on the internet, or you can use your library's catalog or research databases to search for the sources by author or title. So, while the Wikipedia article itself should not be cited as support within your writing, it's a great resource to help you learn more about your topic and become familiar with the critical conversation. And it can potentially lead you to sources that can be used as support in your writing. Additionally, it can help you narrow down a broad topic like Moby Dick into a more specific topic like racial conflict in Moby Dick. Similarly, you can use the library research database Bloom's Literature to learn more about your text. Do a search for the title of the text, then use the Reference tab to see a list of various reference works on your text. You can also narrow the results to reference works that provide overviews, author biographies, theme discussions, essay topic ideas, and more. While you should avoid using these reference works as support in your writing, like Wikipedia articles, they are great for conducting preliminary research. Later on in the research process, you can return to this database and use the Criticism tab to find peer-reviewed scholarly articles that can be used as support in your writing. Another great source for preliminary research is the library research database GALE Literature Resource Center. Do a search for the title of the text, then use the Topic and Work Overviews tab to see a list of reference works that can also be filtered with various tools. Like the other reference sources we've discussed, you should use these overviews for preliminary research to learn about your topic and get familiar with the overall criticism only. When you're ready for more specific research, you can use the other tabs to find all kinds of other sources that can be used as support in your writing, such as literature criticism, biographies, reviews and news, primary sources and literary works, and multimedia. The next step of the research process is to narrow down your topic and write a working thesis. After reading your text carefully, taking reading notes, and conducting preliminary research, you should be able to determine some of the work's themes and be more familiar with the critical conversation on your topic. Now it's time to join the conversation by narrowing down your topic and developing your own personal interpretation of the text. The instructions for your assignment may include a writing prompt that specifies a research focus for you. Other assignments require you to choose your own research focus, which means you'll need to decide on a particular aspect of the text to write about. When narrowing down your topic, consider the allotted length of the essay you've been asked to write, generally a certain number of words or pages. You'll need to make sure that your topic is narrow enough to be thoroughly discussed within that length. For example, the topic Moby Dick by itself is too broad to write about in a relatively short essay. If you attempt to write an essay on a topic that is too broad, you likely won't be able to go into depth on any of your main points. Instead, focus on a specific and manageable aspect of the text, generally a theme, that stood out to you in your reading notes and preliminary research. For example, you could write about the nature of obsession in Moby Dick, man versus nature in Moby Dick, or morality in Moby Dick. Once you've decided on a narrowed down topic, use what you've learned about your topic so far to write a working thesis for your essay. A working thesis is one that is used to help you get started on developing your argument that could potentially change as you write to better reflect your ideas. Your working thesis should be one sentence only that clearly states your overall claim and lists your supporting points. Your claim should make a debatable, interpretive argument about what the text means, what purpose it serves, or what message it's trying to get across to the reader. In other words, the claim should focus on the theme that you chose when narrowing down your topic. Your supporting points should be the literary elements that you believe are used in the text to accomplish the text's purpose. As noted earlier in this presentation, literary elements may vary depending on the genre of your chosen text. Listing your supporting points in your thesis helps give your reader an idea as to how your essay will be structured and helps your essay flow smoothly. The average essay uses 3 supporting points. Let's look at an example. To analyze a work's theme, you might use a structure like this. This work of literature demonstrates this theme by using literary element 1, literary element 2, and literary element 3. An example of a thesis on a theme in Moby Dick that uses this structure might look like this. In his novel Moby Dick, Herman Melville highlights man's relentless tendency to exert dominance over nature by using characters, metaphors, and setting. The first part of this thesis is the claim. Here, the writer focuses on the theme of man versus nature. The second part of this thesis lists the supporting points. The writer believes that this theme is demonstrated through the use of 3 literary elements: characters, metaphors, and setting. Once you have your working thesis, you can begin conducting specific research on your topic. Conducting specific research and finding sources on your topic is probably the most time-consuming step of the writing process. However, the more time you dedicate to this step, the easier it will be to write about your topic in the drafting step. Start by reviewing the instructions for your writing assignment to see what types of sources you're expected to use in your essay and how many sources and citations you're required to include. For example, some assignments require you to use peer-reviewed sources only, like academic journals, while others allow you to use websites, editorials, and personal experiences as support. In academic writing, you will generally use two kinds of sources: primary sources and secondary sources. Primary sources are derived from original, first-hand information. Some examples of primary sources are speeches, historical documents, government or legal documents, original art or literature, diary entries, letters, scientific studies, surveys, and interviews. Secondary sources, on the other hand, are second-hand sources that are focused on describing, analyzing, or interpreting primary sources. Some examples are literary analyses, academic journal articles, and book, movie, or literature reviews. Here are a few other examples. The Constitution is a primary source, whereas an academic journal that interprets the Constitution is a secondary source. The poem, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, is a primary source, while a literary analysis on that poem is a secondary source. A presidential election poll is a primary source, while a newspaper article that analyzes the results of that poll is a secondary source. While you can use both primary and secondary sources as support in academic essays, it's important to verify that any secondary sources you use are considered reliable. For more details on distinguishing between fact and misinformation in evaluating sources, see my presentation called Evaluating Sources. To save yourself a lot of trouble and time, you should come up with a system for organizing your sources before starting on your research. Here are a few different methods you could use. First, if you have access to cloud-based online storage, such as Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, you can save digital copies of your sources there. This option is especially helpful if most of your sources are electronic. In addition, several apps and programs are available that allow you to annotate sources digitally as well. Those that prefer hard copies can print out electronic sources, staple the pages together, and annotate them directly on the page. Write a short summary at the top of the first page, highlight lines that you think you could use as support in your essay, write questions in the margins, and circle words and allusions that you're unfamiliar with. If the bibliographic details of a source aren't included in your printout, be sure to write the information down that you'll need to cite your source later on. You can also use a word processing program like Microsoft Word to keep track of your sources. For this option, you can type out or cut and paste each source's title, author, and other bibliographic details, write a short summary of the source's overall claim and supporting points, and make a note about how you think you can use the source in your essay, or copy and paste lines that you'd like to quote. Be careful though. If you copy any lines from the source, be sure to put quotation marks around them to remind yourself that they are direct quotations and not your own notes, and write down the page number. Similarly, you can write out source details by hand using pen and paper instead of typing them into a word processor. Finally, if you prefer physical sources, such as books from the library, use tabs to mark passages that you think will be helpful to your research, and write notes and summaries on sticky notes. Remember that starting your research with a good plan for organizing your sources will save you a lot of trouble when it comes time to write your essay. Students who don't organize their sources often end up forgetting where their quotations come from, or having to read their sources over and over again. Libraries have everything you need to conduct your research. Whether you prefer physical sources or electronic sources, your school's library is a great place to start your research, and your librarian can help with both options. Most libraries have reference librarians who can help you find sources specifically for your research topic and save you a lot of time and hassle. Libraries also serve as great places to study and read your sources, and usually offer study rooms and quiet spaces to work, along with computers, printers, and other valuable resources. You can visit the library in person to find physical sources such as printed books, journals, encyclopedias, magazines, and newspapers, along with audio and video sources. Most libraries have an electronic catalog of all of their physical sources that can be easily searched by keyword, author, title, or subject. Search results include descriptions of the sources and call numbers to help you locate them on the library's shelves. Ask your librarian for a tutorial on how to use the library's electronic catalog to find sources. Then ask for a tour or a map of the library so you can locate them. If you prefer printed, hard copy books, you can often find an entire section of books dedicated to your topic in the library. It's easy to browse through books quickly by scanning the table of contents in the books and reading chapter or article titles that may be relevant to your topic. Or you can flip to the index in the back of the books to search for key words. Additionally, oftentimes scholarly books and articles will cite from other related sources that are also documented at the end. Following a trail of sources can save you a significant amount of time and effort when researching. Feel free to take advantage of other people's hard work whenever you can. Libraries also provide access to a wealth of electronic sources through the library's catalog, research databases, and online subscriptions to journals, magazines, and newspapers. Sometimes full copies of ebooks, along with government and legal documents and audio and video sources, can be accessed through the library's electronic catalog without having to visit the library in person. The library's research databases can also be accessed from home. Research databases are online listings of electronic sources that contain a variety of scholarly journal, magazine, and newspaper articles, along with e-books and videos. Most libraries allow you to search for research databases by title or subject. If you're not sure what database to start with, Academic Search Complete is a great first choice, as it provides access to thousands of full-text, peer-reviewed articles across multiple disciplines. JSTOR is another good database for finding quality sources on a variety of subjects. As previously discussed, the Bloom's Literature and GALE Literature Resource Center databases are specifically good for researching literature. Additionally, the library may have subscriptions to popular online journals, magazines, and newspapers that you can access through databases such as eBook Central or ProQuest. Before you can get started finding resources through the library catalog or through the research databases, you'll need to come up with some keywords on your topic to use as search terms. Using keywords that are too broad will likely give you very broad results. For example, a search for Moby Dick on JSTOR produces over 14,000 search results, which is quite overwhelming. To find more specific results, you'll need to come up with more specific keywords. To do this, write down your working thesis, then underline the words you feel are most important. Usually these are nouns or noun phrases. Try adding one of these underlined words to your search. For example, a search for nature in Moby Dick reduces results to just under 9,000. To narrow these results even more, you can use the various advanced search tools to refine your search by limiting results according to source type, publishing date, subject, and more. For example, a search for nature in Moby Dick that limits sources to journal articles that have been published within the last 5 years reduces results to 159 articles, a much more manageable number than our original search. Since the results are listed by relevance, you can quickly scan the titles and summaries of the first several sources to determine if they are relevant to your research before reading them in full. Next, we'll talk about synthesizing sources into your writing. As you research, keep in mind that sources should be used in your essay to enhance your own ideas and support your argument about the text. The overall focus of your essay should be on your own interpretation of the text, though you may also compare your claim to the claims of other literary scholars. Aim to use a variety of source types as support in your essay, such as print and online sources, articles and books, and primary and secondary sources. Though it's sometimes acceptable to use a few older sources when arguing about literature, most sources should be as current as possible. Try to use sources published within the last 10 years. One of the most common types of sources used in essays about literature is literary criticism. Secondary sources like articles or books written by literary scholars that focus on interpretive claims about a specific work or works of literature, or about a genre or subgenre of literature. Works of literary criticism are usually published by peer-reviewed academic journals or magazines, or by academic or university presses. You can use literary criticism sources to show how your interpretation of a text relates to other interpretations, or to criticize, support, or build on claims made by other scholars. For example, you might argue that a claim neglects an important element of the text, and then show how that element could be analyzed or developed. You might agree with parts of a claim and disagree with others. As previously discussed, since the purpose of your essay is to add to the critical conversation on your text in some way, you should avoid simply restating what others have said about it. Instead, show why your interpretation is better, different, or new. You can also use various types of contextual sources as support in your essay, such as biographical sources. Primary biographical sources include additional nonfiction works by the writer, like autobiographies, letters, diaries, and articles, while secondary biographical sources include biographies on the writer. Biographical sources can help you learn more about the life of the writer, when and where they lived, their experiences, worldviews, or intentions for writing. These details may provide additional insight into a work's origins and affect your overall interpretation of it. Think about how biographical details might have helped shape or inspire the work, and write about how that information changes the way you read it. Additionally, studying multiple works by the same author may reveal aspects of their personality, voice, or style that might be missed when reading a single work. Finally, cultural and historical contextual sources can also be used in your essay. Primary cultural and historical sources include a variety of works written during a particular place and time in history, such as diaries, letters, interviews, or government documents. Secondary cultural and historical sources include a variety of works written about a particular time and place in history, such as the Harlem Renaissance or the French Revolution, a social movement, such as the American Civil Rights Movement, a critical approach, such as Marxism or feminism, or a literary movement, such as English Romanticism or American Naturalism. Contextual details about the time and place in which a work is written or written about can affect your overall understanding of it or reaction to it. Sometimes writers use particular historical settings intentionally in order to comment on what was happening then or even now. Think about how historical, cultural, social, economic, political, or religious contexts can add perspective to a work. Also, consider how reading a work based on a particular critical approach or literary movement might change the way you interpret it. After completing your research, take a few minutes to reflect on what you've learned about your topic. Consider the following. Think about the results of your research. Did it surprise you in some way? Did it meet your initial expectations? Did you learn more than you set out to? Next, take a look back at your working thesis. Does any of this new information make you want to change the focus of your essay? More importantly, does your overall claim still hold true? Did your research reveal information that makes you want to change the wording of your thesis? Did you find a supporting point that was more interesting than one of your original points, or discover that one of your points is not as strong as you thought it would be? Sometimes more detailed research may cause you to take a different stance on your topic altogether, and that's okay. It's easy to make adjustments to your working thesis at this stage, and you likely learned enough about your topic from your research to develop new points if necessary. Now that you've researched your topic thoroughly, you can complete the remaining steps of the writing process. We'll briefly review these steps here, but be sure to refer back to my presentations on analyzing literature and the writing process for more details. Use your working thesis and the knowledge you've gained from your research to structure your ideas by creating an outline for your essay. Your introduction should introduce the text by title and author, briefly summarize the text, state any basic contextual information needed to understand your argument, and end with your thesis. If your context runs long, you may want to include an optional background paragraph after your introduction. Your body paragraphs should discuss each of your supporting points in the same order as they are listed in the thesis. Use evidence from the text and your sources to back up your claim, and use transitions and topic sentences at the beginning of each paragraph to introduce each point. End your essay with a conclusion that reiterates your thesis and main points in light of the information provided in your body paragraphs and show why your topic matters. Use your completed outline as a guide to draft your essay. Be sure to schedule plenty of writing sessions and avoid procrastination. Also consider scheduling a conference with your professor or go to tutoring if you need extra help. Use either summary, paraphrasing, or quoting to integrate source material into your writing. Introduce quotations with signal phrases that provide information about the source. End your quotations with citations, and include the full bibliographic details of your sources at the end of your essay. See my presentations called Integrating Sources and Documenting and Formatting Sources for more details. Finally, complete the writing process by revising and editing your essay. Let's review. In this presentation, we discussed how to define academic research, choose and narrow down a topic, read the text and take reading notes, conduct preliminary research, write a working thesis, conduct specific research, and synthesize sources into your writing. Thanks for watching.